Where do you think you're going in that dress?" The words came out before I could stop them. She froze by the front door, one hand on the doorknob, caught in the act. It was nearly 10 p.m. on a Thursday, and there she stood in a skin-tight red dress that barely reached mid-thigh, with a neckline that plunged dangerously low. I'm not, and have never been, a controlling husband. But her attempt to slip out of the house late at night wearing that red dress told me everything I needed to know. Our marriage had been turbulent for weeks, something uncommon in our 3 years together, but tensions had been escalating constantly on her end, leading to this fateful moment. She turned slowly, her expression a careful mask of innocence that didn't reach her eyes. "Just going out with the girls. Why are you making this into something it's not?" I leaned against the wall, studying her. The heavy makeup, the hair styled perfectly, the heels higher than she'd wear to any casual gathering, and that red dress, one I'd never seen before. A dress that screamed availability to any man who looked her way. The girls? Which girls exactly? I asked, keeping my voice level despite the anger building inside me. "Just some work friends. You don't know them." She checked her phone nervously. "I'm running late." "That's interesting because I called Jamie earlier today about borrowing their lake house next month, and she mentioned she was staying in tonight because of her early flight tomorrow." Jamie, her supposed best friend from work. The one she claimed to be meeting nearly every time she went out lately. Her face fell momentarily before she recovered. "Not Jamie. Other friends. From the marketing department." "Names? Why are you interrogating me?" Her voice rose defensively. "Since when do I need your permission to go out?" I remained calm, which I could see was unsettling her more than any shouting would have. "You don't need permission. But after 12 years together and 3 years of marriage, I deserve respect. And respect includes honesty about where you're going at 10 p.m. on a weeknight wearing a dress you bought secretly and hid in the back of your closet." Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't realized I'd found the shopping bag, price tag still attached, stuffed behind her winter coats. The dress had cost more than our monthly utility bills combined. "You went through my things?" she deflected, trying to shift the blame. "I was looking for the tax documents you said you filed. Found something else entirely." I straightened up. "So, I'll ask again, where are you really going?" "It's just drinks with colleagues." "Why don't you trust me anymore?" "The last 3 weeks, you've been password protecting your phone, taking calls in another room, coming home smelling like cologne I don't wear, and deleting your browser history daily. Trust isn't given unconditionally, it's maintained. And you've been doing everything possible to break it." Her facade cracked slightly. "You're being paranoid. This is exactly why I need some space tonight." I walked to the coat rack and grabbed my jacket. "If it's just innocent drinks with colleagues, you won't mind if I join you." "No," she said too quickly. "I mean, it's just, it would be awkward. Work stuff. Work stuff in that dress. Try again." Silence fell between us. In those quiet seconds, our 3 years of marriage seemed to collapse into nothing. All the morning coffees, weekend trips, and promises of forever, dissolved by whatever secret lay behind that red dress. "Fine," she finally snapped. "I'm meeting friends, and I want to look good. Is that a crime? Not everything is about you and your insecurities." I nodded slowly, a cold clarity washing over me. "Go then. Enjoy your night." She hesitated, clearly thrown off by my sudden acquiescence. Really? But know this, I won't be waiting up. In fact, I might not be here when you get back." "What's that supposed to mean?" Worry crept into her voice. "It means choices have consequences. It means I respect myself too much to play the fool. It means that dress tells me everything your words aren't." I held her gaze steadily. "So yes, go? But understand what you're risking by walking out that door right now." I saw the calculation in her eyes, weighing whatever awaited her outside against what she might lose here. For a moment, I thought she might stay, might confess. Instead, she straightened her spine, clutched her purse tighter. "You're overreacting. We'll talk when I get back." As she opened the door, I said one last thing. "Just remember, I may forgive, but I never forget. And I never give second chances." The door closed behind her, and in the sudden silence of our home, I made my decision. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't beg. I'd find out exactly where that red dress was taking her, and then I'd make her truly available, permanently. 10 minutes after she left, I grabbed my car keys. If she thought I was bluffing about not playing the fool, she was sorely mistaken. I'd been suspicious for weeks. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden password on her phone. But that red dress was the final straw. The woman I married would never have worn something so blatantly provocative for a casual night with friends. I followed at a safe distance, staying 2 cars behind her sleek sedan. She didn't drive toward downtown where the usual happy hour spots were located. Instead, she headed to Westwood, the upscale part of town known for its exclusive restaurants and boutique hotels. My knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. She pulled into the valet section of the Monarch, one of the most expensive hotels in the city. I parked across the street and watched as she stepped out, adjusting that damned red dress before handing her keys to the attendant. Even from a distance, I could see heads turning as she walked through the glass doors into the lobby. I waited 15 minutes before following. Inside, I spotted her immediately at the hotel's dimly lit bar. She wasn't with a group of female colleagues. Instead, she sat intimately close to a man in an expensive suit, his hand resting on her bare knee. I recognized him instantly, Robert Chambers, her department director. The man was at least 15 years older than her and, memory served, very much married with children in college. I didn't cause a scene. That's not my style. Instead, I took a seat at the far end of the bar where I could observe them without being noticed. I ordered a scotch I had no intention of drinking and watched their interaction unfold like a movie I wished I could turn off. Her body language told the whole story. Leaning in close, laughing too hard at his jokes, touching his arm, twirling her hair. This wasn't their first meeting. They had the comfortable familiarity of people who had done this dance before. When his hand moved higher up her thigh and she didn't stop him, I had all the confirmation I needed. I discreetly took out my phone and snapped several photos of them together. Not because I needed proof for myself. What I was seeing was evidence enough, but because documentation would be useful for what came next. After about 40 minutes, they stood up. He paid the bill, and with his hand now firmly on the small of her back, they walked toward the elevators. Not the exit, the elevators. They were getting a room. I could have followed, could have burst in and caught them in the act. But that's what a man ruled by emotion would do. I'm not that man. I finished my untouched scotch, left cash on the bar, and walked out. I had seen everything I needed to see. On the drive home, I didn't blast music or pound the steering wheel or shed a single tear. Instead, I planned methodically. Our joint checking account, the house deed, my retirement funds, the logistics of separation. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had mapped out the next 3 months of my life. Inside our home, the home we had chosen together, decorated together, built a life in together. I went to our shared office and opened the computer. She had always been careless about logging out of her accounts. Within minutes, I found hotel reservations spanning back 2 months. Weekly meetings, always on Thursdays. Always at the Monarch. There were emails too, saved in a folder labeled Project Backups. Clever, but not clever enough. The messages confirmed my suspicions and worse. This wasn't just physical. They had been planning a future together. In one email, she complained about me, calling our marriage stifling and a mistake. In another, she discussed how they could handle the transition after she left me. They had been plotting behind my back while I worked overtime to afford the lifestyle she wanted. The vacations, the car she drove, the designer clothes she wore, like that red dress that had finally exposed the truth. I didn't delete the emails or close the accounts. Instead, I took screenshots of everything, forwarding them to my personal email and saving copies to a secure drive. Then I made several phone calls, to my bank, to a lawyer friend who specialized in divorce, and finally to a realtor about rental properties. By 2 a.m., I had moved half our joint funds to a separate account, completely legal as a protective measure, changed my direct deposit information for my next paycheck, and secured a short-term lease on an apartment across town. Not because I planned to leave our house, she would be the one leaving, but because I needed a backup plan. I was finishing my preparations when I heard her key in the door, earlier than I expected. Based on the hotel records I'd found, her Thursday meetings usually ran until dawn. Perhaps they'd cut things short tonight. Perhaps the guilt had finally caught up to her. I shut down the computer and moved to the living room, sitting in the dark, waiting. When she entered and turned on the light, she gasped in surprise. "You scared me," she said, placing her hand over her heart dramatically. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I looked at her carefully. Her slightly smudged lipstick, her tousled hair, the strap of her red dress now slightly twisted. "How were your friends from the marketing department?" I asked calmly. She set her purse down and kicked off her heels. "Fine. Just a few drinks, like I said." "At the Monarch Hotel?" With Robert Chambers? The color drained from her face. This time, there would be no talking her way out. No more lies. The game was over, and we both knew it. Tomorrow, I said, my voice steady as steel, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation. About divorce. Sleep didn't come that night. After I dropped the bomb about divorce, she burst into tears, not the quiet, remorseful kind, but the dramatic, attention-seeking sobs I'd seen whenever she wanted to redirect the conversation. I remained unmoved. Those tears weren't for our marriage. They were for herself, for being caught, for facing consequences. You don't understand, she pleaded, pacing our living room. It's not what you think. I understand perfectly, I replied, my voice steady. I saw you with him. At the Monarch. In the bar. Heading to the elevators. Or are you going to tell me you were discussing quarterly reports in a hotel room at midnight? Her eyes widened. You followed me. You had no right. And you had no right to make vows you never intended to keep. I countered. But here we are. She switched tactics instantly, her tears drying up as she moved closer, attempting to touch my arm. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake. It didn't mean anything. I stepped back. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or burning dinner. Meeting your boss in hotel rooms for 2 months is a choice. Multiple choices made repeatedly. How did you? The computer keeps records. The hotel keeps records. Your emails keep records. I gestured toward our office. Project backups? Really? Not very creative for someone in marketing. She collapsed onto the sofa, her red dress, that beacon of betrayal, riding up inappropriately. Once, that sight might have stirred something in me. Now, it only reinforced how little I recognized the woman I had married. What do you want? She asked finally. Money? The house. I'll do anything. We can work through this. I almost laughed. What I want is something you can't give me anymore. Honesty, loyalty, respect. The foundation of any marriage. People make mistakes, she insisted. Couples recover from affairs all the time. Those couples aren't us, I stated firmly. I'm not interested in checking your phone for the rest of my life or wondering where you really are when you're working late. That's not a marriage. That's a prison sentence. Her expression hardened suddenly. It's not like you were perfect. You were always working, always distracted. And there it was, the blame shifting I'd been expecting. I didn't take the bait. I worked 60-hour weeks so we could afford the lifestyle you wanted. The lifestyle that apparently includes secret shopping trips for dresses to wear for other men. I shook my head. But this isn't a debate. I'm not here to argue my case or listen to you rewrite history. I'm informing you of my decision. She tried another approach, her voice softening as she stood and moved toward me again. We have history. 3 years of marriage. 12 years together. Are you really going to throw that away? I didn't throw anything away. I replied, maintaining my distance. You did. Every time you lied. Every time you met him. Every time you planned your exit strategy in those emails. Her face paled. You read my private emails? On our shared computer. In our shared home. Paid for with money I earned while you were sharing yourself with your boss. It's not what you... Stop. I cut her off sharply. I'm not interested in your spin. The facts are clear. You've been having an affair, planning to leave me, and lying to my face daily. The only decision left is how we handle the separation. She began crying again, but I continued. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I've already secured my finances. I've already documented everything. You have until tomorrow evening to pack whatever belongs exclusively to you and leave. Leave? She shouted, suddenly angry. This is my house too. You can't just throw me out. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. I bought it before we were married, remember? You insisted we keep it that way for tax purposes. How convenient for me now. That revelation hit her like a physical blow. She'd been so focused on maintaining separate assets to protect herself, she'd never considered how it might backfire. Where am I supposed to go? She demanded. I'm sure Robert has room at his place. Or perhaps the Monarch offers weekly rates. My tone remained level despite the cutting words. That's not my concern anymore. You're being cruel, she whispered. No, cruel would be publicly exposing your affair to everyone we know. Cruel would be sending those emails to Robert's wife. I paused, letting the threat hang in the air. I'm being merciful by giving you a clean break. She stared at me, finally seeing what she'd failed to notice for months, that I wasn't the pushover she'd taken me for. You have until 7 p.m. tomorrow, I repeated. After that, I changed the locks and anything remaining goes to charity. As I turned to walk away, she called out, "This isn't over." I stopped, turned back slowly. "It was over the moment you put on that red dress thinking I wouldn't notice. The rest is just paperwork." I slept in the guest room that night, door locked. Through the wall, I could hear her crying, making phone calls, moving around frantically. I felt no satisfaction, no vindication, just a cold clarity about what needed to be done. The woman I loved had died the moment I saw her with another man. Now I was just handling the funeral arrangements for our marriage. Morning arrived with the harsh brightness of reality. I'd slept barely 3 hours, but my mind was clearer than it had been in months. I showered, dressed for work, and entered the kitchen to find her sitting at the island counter, still in yesterday's clothes, makeup smeared across her face. The red dress now looked pathetic in the morning light, a symbol of deception turned to defeat. "We need to talk," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "We talked last night," I replied, making coffee as if it were any normal day. "The deadline stands. 7 p.m. She watched me with red-rimmed eyes as I moved around the kitchen. "You can't seriously expect me to pack up my entire life in one day. You've had plenty of time to plan your exit. Those emails with Robert go back months." I poured my coffee into a travel mug. "Besides, most of what's here, what matters, is mine." "That's not true. I decorated this place. I chose everything. With my credit card. The receipts are all in my name." I took a sip of coffee. "But take the decorative items if they matter so much. I don't care about throw pillows and artwork." Her mouth opened and closed, searching for leverage she no longer had. "What about the furniture? Purchased before we were married. Documented in the prenup you insisted on." Another sip. "Ironic how that's working out, isn't it?" She stood suddenly, knocking over her untouched water glass. "You planned this. You're enjoying watching me suffer." I set my mug down carefully. "I planned nothing. I reacted to your choices. And I take no pleasure in any of this. But I won't apologize for protecting myself from someone who clearly intended to discard me. I never. Once I leave him," I quoted from memory, "we can finally stop sneaking around." Your words. To him. 3 weeks ago. I picked up my mug again. "So please, spare me the victim act." She collapsed back onto the stool, the fight temporarily leaving her. "What do I tell people?" "The truth would be refreshing," I suggested, checking my watch. "But tell them whatever you want. I really don't care anymore." As I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, she tried one last tactic, her voice suddenly soft and seductive. "Remember our first apartment? How we couldn't keep our hands off each other? We could have that again." I turned slowly. There she was, shoulders now exposed as she'd pulled the dress lower, eyes attempting to look inviting despite the smeared makeup. Once, that look would have weakened my resolve. Now it only strengthened it. "Sex won't fix betrayal," I said simply. 7 p.m. I left for work, spending the day focused on my projects, answering emails, attending meetings, professional on the outside while executing personal contingency plans during breaks. I called the locksmith to come at 7:30, contacted the security company to change access codes, emailed my lawyer the final documents he'd requested. When I returned home at 6:30, the scene was chaotic. Suitcases in the hallway, clothes strewn across furniture. She'd been joined by her sister, who shot me a venomous look as I entered. "You're really going through with this?" her sister demanded. "After one mistake?" 67 mistakes, I corrected calmly. "That's how many hotel reservations I've found, spanning 7 months. Her sister's expression shifted slightly. She hadn't known the extent of it. "And it's bold of you to lecture me on forgiveness," I continued, "considering you divorced your husband when he forgot your birthday." That silenced her. The hypocrisy was too blatant to defend. My wife emerged from our bedroom, more composed now in jeans and a sweater. The red dress was nowhere in sight. "I've packed what I can," she said, attempting dignity. "I'll need to come back for the rest." "No," I replied firmly. "Whatever isn't gone by 7 stays here. Those are the terms. But your things or your pride. Choose quickly. You have 25 minutes. What followed was a frantic rush as they loaded her sister's SUV. Jewelry, designer clothes, photo albums, the expensive stand mixer she'd insisted we needed but never used. I watched dispassionately from the kitchen, drinking water and answering work emails on my phone. At 6:58, she stood in the doorway, her sister already in the idling vehicle outside. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd fallen in love with years ago, before ambition and materialism had twisted her into someone unrecognizable. "Is there anything I can say?" she asked, voice small. "No. This is really it then? This is really it." She nodded slowly, reality finally setting in. "What will you tell people when they ask why I left?" "I won't have to tell them anything," I replied. "The hotel has security cameras in the lobby. Robert's wife has received copies of your emails. Your affair isn't private anymore." The color drained from her face. "You didn't. Actions have consequences. You chose the action. Now live with the consequence." "You've ruined me," she whispered. "No, you did that all by yourself." With a red dress and a string of bad decisions. As she turned to leave, I added one final thought. "I'll have the divorce papers sent to your sister's address. Sign them without contest, and we never have to speak again. That's the kindest offer you'll get from me." The door closed behind her at exactly 7 p.m. I immediately called the locksmith to come earlier. Within 30 minutes, new locks were installed. Access codes changed. Security system updated. The physical erasure of her from my life had begun. That night, I slept in our bed, my bed now, for the first time in weeks. The sheets still held a trace of her perfume, so I stripped them off and replaced them with fresh ones. As I lay in the darkness, I felt no triumph, no vindication, just the hollow recognition that I'd done what was necessary. The red dress that had screamed, "available," had accomplished its purpose after all, just not in the way she'd intended. She was truly available now. Available to face a world where actions have consequences. Available to live with the wreckage of what she'd destroyed. And I was available too. Available to rebuild. Available to start again. Available to remember my worth and never compromise it again for someone who couldn't see its value. The next few days unfolded exactly as I expected. A barrage of calls and messages I had no intention of answering. Her friends. Her family. Even mutual acquaintances who suddenly felt entitled to opinions on our private matters. I let them all go to voicemail, their messages increasingly desperate as they realized I wouldn't be swayed by secondhand manipulation. What I hadn't anticipated was how quickly information would spread. By Monday morning, my phone was ringing with calls from people I hadn't heard from in years, all suddenly concerned about my rash decision. I maintained radio silence. This wasn't a negotiation or a public relations campaign. This was my life, and I refused to justify my choices to people who hadn't bothered to check on me in months or years. The only call I answered was from Robert's wife. Her voice was steady despite the circumstances. "I received your email," she said without preamble. "With the evidence. I'm sorry you had to find out that way." I replied honestly. "Don't be. This isn't the first time, but it will be the last." She paused. "I wanted to thank you." That surprised me. For what? For treating me with respect. For giving me the information directly instead of spreading gossip. Most wouldn't have bothered. We spoke briefly, two strangers connected by betrayal. She had already consulted her own lawyer, had already confronted Robert, had already begun her own process of extraction from a toxic marriage. "He's done this before," she revealed. "With his previous assistant. With an intern. Always the same pattern. And she knew this?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Yes. I warned her myself 6 months ago when I saw how he looked at her during the company picnic." She called me delusional and jealous. Another piece of the puzzle fell into place. My wife hadn't just betrayed me. She'd betrayed another woman while knowing exactly what she was walking into. The depth of the deception was staggering. After that call, I went completely dark on social media. Changed my phone number. Set up email filters to send anything from her or her family straight to trash. The divorce papers were filed and delivered to her sister's address as promised. My lawyer assured me our case was airtight, especially with the evidence we had and the prenup in place. 3 weeks passed in relative peace. I threw myself into work, took up running again, reconnected with friends I'd neglected. The house felt emptier but cleaner somehow, as if her departure had cleared more than just physical space. Then came the knock at my door late one Thursday evening. She stood on the porch looking nothing like the confident woman who'd tried to sneak out in that red dress a month earlier. Her hair was pulled back severely, her face bare of makeup, her clothing conservative and dark. A calculated appearance of contrition. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not inviting her in. "The divorce papers," she said, holding up the envelope. "I've signed them." I took the envelope without opening it. "You could have mailed these." "I wanted to see you. To talk." We have nothing to discuss. She glanced past me into the house. Our house, once. 5 minutes. Please. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. Not from weakness, but from a desire to end this chapter definitively. 5 minutes to close 3 years. She entered tentatively, noticing immediately the changes I'd made. New furniture, different art on the walls. Even the paint color in the living room had changed. I'd erased every trace of her influence. "You've been busy," she commented. "What do you want?" She sat uninvited on the edge of my new sofa. "Robert fired me. That's between you and human resources. His wife is divorcing him," she continued. "The company is investigating him for inappropriate relationships with subordinates." I remain standing. Actions have consequences. My parents aren't speaking to me. My friends have taken sides. Your side. Her voice cracked slightly. "I've lost everything." "You lost nothing," I corrected her. "You threw it away. There's a difference." She looked up, eyes glistening with tears I no longer trusted. "I made a terrible mistake." "No, a mistake is unintentional. You made 67 deliberate choices to betray everything we built. People deserve second chances," she pressed. "Some people, some mistakes." I checked my watch pointedly. 3 minutes left. She tried another angle. "We have history. 12 years. That has to count for something." It counted. Past tense. Now it's just a lesson I've learned. Desperation crept into her voice. "What if I told you I've changed? That I realized what truly matters?" "I'd say that's convenient timing, after you've lost your job, your lover, and your reputation." I walked to the door and opened it. "Your 5 minutes are up." She stood slowly. "So that's it. Just cold finality." "You confuse coldness with clarity. I'm making a rational decision based on evidence. You showed me exactly who you are with that red dress and everything that followed. I believe you now." She moved to the door but hesitated at the threshold. "He never cared about me, you know. It was just physical for him. Just a game." "That should be comforting," I replied. "It means you destroyed our marriage for absolutely nothing of value." The words hit her like a physical blow. Perhaps it was the first time she'd framed it that way in her own mind. The enormity of what she'd sacrificed for such a hollow prize. "The divorce will be final in 60 days, I said. "Don't contact me again. And if I contest it, a final, weak attempt at leverage." I smiled for the first time in our conversation. "Then I release everything. Emails, photos, hotel receipts, the security footage I obtained from the Monarch showing your weekly visits. If you thought the social consequences were bad now, imagine when everyone sees the complete evidence." Her face paled. "You wouldn't. Try me." She studied my expression and saw the truth. The man standing before her wasn't the same one she'd thought she could control with tears and manipulation. That man was gone, replaced by someone who had found strength in her betrayal. Without another word, she walked past me into the night. I closed the door, exhaled slowly, and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. It felt like locking away the past itself. The red dress that had started this unraveling was probably hanging in her closet at her sister's place. A useless garment now. Costume from a performance that had failed spectacularly. Its message of available had become her new reality in ways she never intended. Available for judgment, available for consequences, available for the cold embrace of a life built on deception. 3 months after the night of the red dress, my divorce was finalized with minimal drama. She had signed everything without contest, perhaps realizing that a court battle would only further expose her indiscretions. The legal document arrived by courier on a Tuesday morning, a handful of papers that officially dissolved 12 years of history. I signed my portion over coffee, feeling not grief, but release. That same day, I received a job offer from a competing firm, a significant promotion with nearly double my current salary. The timing felt symbolic. As one chapter of my life officially closed, another opened with new possibilities. I accepted immediately. My personal transformation had been just as deliberate as my professional one. I'd renovated the house completely, erasing any trace of her influence. I'd established new routines, reconnected with old friends, and even started dating casually. Nothing serious, just dinner conversations with interesting women who respected themselves enough not to wear red dresses to meet married men. News about my ex-wife reached me occasionally through mutual acquaintances, though I never sought it out. After being fired, she'd struggled to find comparable employment. Companies were reluctant to hire someone with her reputation for workplace indiscretions. Robert had faced his own consequences, His wife had filed for divorce, taking half his assets and public respect in the process. According to rumors, he'd been transferred to the company's smallest office in a remote location, a glorified demotion disguised as a strategic reassignment. I took no pleasure in their downfall. Revenge had never been my motivation, only justice and self-preservation. Their problems were entirely self-inflicted, the natural outcome of poor choices. My focus remained firmly on rebuilding my own life. Then came an unexpected envelope in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting immediately. Inside was a single page, not the tearful, manipulative letter I might have expected months ago, but something more surprising. The receipt for the red dress, along with a brief note. I returned it. "You were right about everything. I'm sorry." I read it once, then fed both the receipt and note into the shredder without response. Her apology meant nothing to me now. Too little, too late, offered only after she'd lost everything else. True remorse comes before consequences, not after them. That evening, as I packed for my new job in a new city, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello." A woman's voice, one I didn't immediately recognize. "Yes, it's me." No need to specify who me was. Even with just 2 syllables, I knew. "Why are you calling?" "The divorce is final." A pause. "I heard about your new job. Your promotion. I wanted to congratulate you." "Thank you. Goodbye." I moved to hang up. "Wait." Desperation colored her voice. "Just 1 minute. Please." Curiosity, more than compassion, made me stay on the line. "What?" "I'm moving away," she said. "Starting over somewhere new. I thought you should know. Your plans don't concern me anymore." "I know. Her voice cracked slightly. "I wanted to ask if you think people can really change. If they can come back from mistakes like mine." The question surprised me with its vulnerability. For a moment, I considered offering platitudes or easy comfort. But I owed her the truth, if nothing else. "People can change," I said finally. "But trust, once broken, rarely returns to the same hands that broke it. Whatever you build next, build it with someone who doesn't know your capacity for betrayal." Silence stretched between us, filled with all that could never be repaired. "I really did love you once," she said, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "Not enough to stay faithful. Not enough to choose me over temporary excitement. Love isn't just a feeling, it's a daily choice. You made yours with that red dress." Another silence. Then, "You seem different. Stronger." "I am. That's the unexpected gift in all this. You showed me exactly what I won't tolerate in my life. That clarity is worth something." I heard what might have been a suppressed sob on her end. I wish things had been different. But they weren't. And wishing doesn't change reality. I paused. "I hope you find whatever you're looking for. Just find it honestly next time." "Goodbye," she whispered. "Goodbye," I replied, and ended the call. I finished packing with a strange sense of completion. That conversation was the true finale to our story, not the legal paperwork, not the division of assets, but this acknowledgement that what once existed between us was irreparably gone. The red dress that had declared her available had indeed made her status true, but it had also freed me from a relationship that had already been failing long before she put it on. In trying to escape what we had, she'd inadvertently given me the push I needed to find something better, self-respect that couldn't be shaken by someone else's choices. My new life waited in a different city. New opportunities, new possibilities, perhaps even, eventually, someone worthy of trust. I closed the last suitcase and looked around at the house I would sell next week. The chapters written here were complete. Whatever came next would be on entirely fresh pages. That infamous red dress, a garment designed to attract attention, had ultimately revealed everything that mattered. Not just her availability to other men, but the fragility of what I'd thought was solid. In its scarlet honesty, it had shown me that sometimes endings are disguised as catastrophes, when they're actually doorways to something stronger, something truer, something entirely yours. And for that unexpected gift, I was almost grateful.